Now that we've seen how to write select statements, the next question is how to actually test them. Well, there's a convenient way right out of PyCharm. And let me go ahead and this is the installation project with the sample test code. And we see that it's executing a really simple select statement here, selecting top 50 star from title basics. Now, obviously, you could embed complicated SQL queries right in this code and execute it and see the return results displayed in the console. But there's a better way, and that's to use this database tab here to configure a data source. So when I open the database tab, I see there's a plus sign. I can select plus for new, and then under data source, you'll see in this list Microsoft SQL Server. Now, I've used it recently, and so it's under the list of recently used for me, but yours will be somewhere around here. Select Microsoft SQL Server, and you'll get a pop-up that's asking you to configure a data source. So this name will change to reflect the settings that I add here. So I want to start with host, and the first thing that I want to configure is cisdbss.pcc.edu. And then I can leave port blank because the default is fine. Authentication is going to be user and password. That's a SQL login. And the username is 275 student, and the password is the same, 275 student. Save forever is fine. And then the database that I want to select inside of this database server, you're going to be using names for your project this week, but I'm going to show you some examples using IMDb. So here I'm just going to type IMDb, which is the name of the database on this database server. And you'll see the name has automatically been configured to imdb at cisdbss.pcc.edu. So if I've done everything correctly, the next step is to click on this test connection link. And here it's actually using the database driver to connect to the database and verifying that it can log in and access this database. And if you get succeeded, everything is configured correctly, and you can say OK. So this will spin for a while, let it do its thing. It should ultimately say one of some number like 174 currently. And then underneath the database server is the IMDb database, one of 13 that you have access to. You should be able to click on that little angle bracket to open it. Then you'll see DBO, which is called a database schema. You can open that. And then under tables, here's a list of all of the tables under the IMDb database. Now you can browse individual tables as well by opening the table up and then looking at columns. And I see, for example, that the title principals column has a tconst, which is a movie ID, an integer for ordering, an nconst, which is the name of a person, ID for the name of a person, and then a category that the person performed, a job, and characters if the person was an actor or actress. But I'm going to stick with title basics. So we see the columns in title basics are tconst, title type, and so on. Now, in addition to being able to browse through the list of columns for each table and being able to see the type of each of those columns, you can actually execute queries in this console window. So when I connect it to the data source, I got this console window, and then over here is query console. So if you click on jump to query console, that will allow you to create a new query console or open the default, which I already have open. So if I make a new one, then I have a separate console window that I can type queries into or I can just use the default one. So let's go ahead and execute a SQL command. So we'll start with a simple select top 50 star from title basics, where let's do year, start year equals the year 2000, and title type equal movie. And then semicolon to close off my SQL statement. And I'll go ahead and click this little run button to execute that. So what I get back is there's an output tab that shows me the query I'm executing, as well as a message from the database server that 50 rows were retrieved. And then here I get the actual data itself presented in a grid, 50 rows at a time. And this is resizable, and I can scroll through it, look at the values. If I'm retrieving more than 50, like for example, let's do 1,000. Yeah, so if I do over 500, it shows me up to 500 at a time by default. So here's the first 500. And then if I want to see the next page, there's 500 through 1,000. And if I had more than 1,000, I would have another next page that I could go to for 1,000 through 1,500 and so on. And then you can also jump to the beginning or jump to the end. So that's a convenient way of browsing through the results. And you can also have multiple queries in the same console. So for example, this one, I'm going to select top 50 primary title, and let's do rating. That's average rating, and num votes. Num votes. And let me make this a little bit bigger here. I can actually hide that for now too. And then that's going to be from title basics join title ratings, and then it automatically supplies that as a completion. And then order by average rating in descending order. And let's add a filter to that. So let's only do where num votes is greater than 10,000. And now I can execute this query by selecting it and hitting run. So this is the query I just wrote, or I can go back and select this query and run that. And I think I just have to click on it so that it's selected. Actually, if you just click on it so that it's selected, it pops up and gives you the choice. So you actually have to select the row, select the query, and hit the run button. Now you can also configure multiple data sources for a project. So for example, you're going to want to use the names database. And so if you want to play around with queries for the names database, you can go ahead and select a new data source, Microsoft SQL Server. And this one will do same as before, cisdbss.pcc.edu. And we'll supply 275 student for the username and password. And the database is names. Go ahead and test the connection. It worked, so we'll say OK. So now we have another console. So here's the console for IMDb. Here's the console for names. And I'm going to go ahead and open that. We see that names is configured. Under DBO, we have 4 tables and 1 view. You're going to want to use the all data view. which has all of these tables stitched together already. So there's 4 different tables in the database. I've joined those 4 tables together into one view, and then it includes all of these columns here. So what typically you're going to want to do is something like select name, year, gender, and name count from all data where name is Mark and gender is male. And then do I want to order that? Yeah, let's order by year. So it's in ascending order by year. And so here are 100 rows showing the name popularity for Mark from 1915 through 2014.